All right. Is this working? I guess we'll see. Always the question. um, Seems like yes. Perfect. Hi. um, so today we're going to make a mistake. Um, we're going to be taking a look at the old. I've been calling it Link for Unity. That was sort of inspired by things like LinkPad. We're probably not going to be calling it that. That was just like a work in progress. I don't know what I'm calling it. So it's just Unity C# because that's what this project does. If you're unfamiliar, it embeds the Roslyn C# compiler into a Unity editor window, and then you can run scripts from that. So you can write C# code just like you normally would inside of the Unity editor, and it will run them in real time and get you rich results. We're redesigning it for a few reasons. One, the initial project was always sort of a sandbox of just trying to get it working. There were a lot of decisions made because of that, because we were just trying to get things working. It made everything else really complicated. And so since the problems aren't code driven, since it's not based off of a lot of code existing, and there's not a large team contributing to it, it's just me, we're going to redesign it instead, and hopefully address some of the things. The main thing that I want to do is separate out the compilation of the scripts that you write and the execution of them. The reason for that is because when you are running your scripts that you're writing, that has to happen synchronously, because it has to happen on the same thread that all of your game is occurring on, because that's where all of these variables and things are stored. So if you try to access that across thread boundaries, it gets really weird. So we can't do that. Instead, what we're going to try to do is compile everything asynchronously so your UI doesn't lock up while your code is compiling, and then execute that synchronously so that we have the hopefully best performance during that. I think that will help address some of the main performance things, and it will help kind of make that script execution part of the whole thing a bit simpler and easier to understand, and hopefully more configurable as well. So that's what we're going to try to do. We're starting from a brand new project because why not? So we're going to just completely start from scratch and see what we get done. Probably going to spend about 2 hours on this and just see where we end up. Hopefully my goal is to just have a basic editor window that just shows the editor window with a text box that you can run a script from. That's the goal by the end of this. We'll see where we get, but that's what we're aiming for. So let's do this. Let's create a C# in Unity. Sure. I know this is kind of a weird name for a project because the project Unity already runs C#, which is part of the reasons why this works. But I don't know how to name it, so this is what we're doing. Let's see here. We also need a editor. So the first thing I'm going to do is just create a basic Unity editor window. I think that's where we want to start. And then we can worry about importing all of the actual libraries we need afterwards. I think that makes sense. Not entirely sure. This is the part that I'm just going to make up, so we'll see. Let's create editor and just call it UI. So the entire project has to live in the editor directory. Maybe not the entire project. I think that's a question I wasn't ready to answer. So there's a few different things that we can do here. My intuition is to put everything into an editor library. That means that when you compile this and try to like distribute your game, it's all gone. It's only in on your editor side. The other hand, like on the other hand of doing that, what we could do is change how this works. And instead have like a shared library between the editor and the runtime, and then have different renderers for both sides. Why that would be useful is that maybe you want to distribute your game with a console, an in-game console that supports C#. You could do that with this if we made it possible to actually, if we shipped the compiler in that. I don't know if that's a good idea. I guess I maybe that's useful. The cool thing with the way this whole thing works is that we actually separate the execution of your scripts and the rendering of what's actually going on. So you can actually render code and then, or you can run code and get a object result. So you'll get some sort of object back, but then you can actually go in and change that. So you can actually say, render this texture as an actual texture in Unity, because we have an editor window and we can do that. We could also just say, here's what that texture is. Here's the size, here's the dimensions, whatever, and give a text readout and print that in a embedded Unity UI as like text. That might be a really fun. I think, so initially I think we're gonna do editor stuff only. I think we should keep that in mind though. Just talking this through. That way we'll be able to kind of support both workflows and you'll be able to do whatever makes sense for your project. The way this works is editor or renders are figured out and resolved at start, which means that when you start your code, it's going to look over all of your assemblies and find any renderers assigned to that, and then use those as your way of actually rendering out results. So you'd actually be able to have different renderers per runtime. This could be cool. Okay, cool. Let's go and jump over to this. So UI, let's create a code execution window. Sure. And if anybody has any questions about how any of this works, this is intended as like a casual thing. So we can go on detours and answer questions or explore different things. Mostly I just want to kind of reset this project and hopefully get it moving forward so that we can actually get people's hands on, because I started this more than a year ago now. And it's still something that only I was able to use because the original implementation was so... It had so many issues. Like that, when I was showing it off in streams and things, I knew how to run it, but if you didn't, it would give you like weird errors that would be hard to find. Hello, welcome. So let's create our editor window. I forget how to do this, so we're gonna make some things up. Unity editor window. Okay, perfect. So we'll copy this, and then we just need to derive from editor window. Like, there we go. And let's get rid of all the mono behavior stuff and drop this in. If you're unfamiliar with editor windows, the way this is going to work is we have a menu item that's defined. This adds a item to Unity's menus. So under window, my window, we'll get a new thing. We're going to do C# in Unity console. Sure. We'll call that whatever it is. And things are being weird, so let's go and grab this and replace all of our types. And there we go. And then there's something, I always forget how to do this. It was in that documentation, but there's some override I think we need. Nope. That doesn't look right. On GUI? Sure. GUI layout. Text. Field. Foo. let's see how this works. I have a feeling this isn't going to work, but we can try it. So when we did that menu item, we told Unity when it compiles to go into the window. The slashes are subdirectories. And so inside of here, there's now a C# and Unity console that we can open. And that worked. Perfect. So now we have a editable text field that we can run things in. So that's not the right place. Too many editors. Let's do GUI layout. Begin vertical. This is another thing that I was pretty unhappy with, is the design of the way I was doing the UI was all immediate style UI stuff like this, where you're declaring your UI in code. The downside of this is that Unity has to basically re-render this every single time that something changes, which is slow. What we typically want to do is define this and then be able to only update parts of the screen that are actually changing. So I do want to get rid of a lot of this later. I just am not familiar with it, and that's not really what I want to accomplish right now. So we're going to just hack something together really quick, and then we'll come back and figure that out, probably in a video or a stream sometime later. So let's end the vertical. And let's do a button. Run, sure. All right. So this is super simple, and that's totally fine. Like, the goal here is definitely not to make it fast. The problems that I ran into when I was originally creating this were related to how the code was executed and how state was managed. So that's the problem that we need to kind of solve. The UI stuff doesn't matter, at least not right now. The one tricky UI or thing that we did have to solve is struct references. We have to have a system for keeping track of structs, which we'll do later. I think the system that I had previously worked actually fairly well. If I can, I would like to simplify it a bit. I don't know the best way to do that though, so we're going to see what happens. There might be some way that we can do that. I just don't know if actually exploring that is a good idea. So we're not going to solve that either, at least not right now. All this is doing is giving us a text field that we can run. Let's give it a script. So let's do string. Command, sure. And so let's just swap this in. And then all we're going to do is run this. So for now, we're just going to do a log of our command when we do this. Eventually, what I want to do is inside of here have a script executor that runs our code and returns the results as a string or as an object or whatever. So we can actually deal with that. That's the idea. Hello from Sydney. It's early for Sydney, isn't it? That must be like quite early. So good morning. I'm glad you've been around for a while, and it's awesome that the videos are helpful. That's why I do this. So thank you so much. There we go. Run all of that. Cool. 6:30 a.m. Wow. Okay. Well, good morning. I hope you have very strong coffee and or tea. Speaking of tea. Wow. I started tea before I started the stream, and it is now very, very overdone. So, we have this. And so if I run this now, we can go pull this up. Test, run. We get test in our console. So everything's good. That's all we need. So now what? This is a good question. dock this, I think, and just throw that over there. And now for the fun part that I don't remember how to do. So we don't need any of that. We need Waslin C# script. There we go. Oh, this isn't what I want. So this is the class we're going to be using. This isn't where we want to be for this, but we'll be able to work on that. I wonder if I can just pull this in. Probably. Hello. How are you? So where is this? Throwing a bunch of errors. Cool. Let's 8:38 p.m. So somewhere in Europe, it sounds like. Welcome from here, or Africa. I'm not entirely sure. Either way, welcome. Let's see here. France. Okay, cool. Let's go jump into our C#. Cool. First off, let's turn this into a Git repo. Source control in Unity is hard. That this is not what this is supposed to be about. But I'm just turning this into a Git repo because that's what I use. I'm also a developer first. And I think a lot of the people who follow this, hello, awesome. We have people from Egypt too. That's so cool. So Git has some problems for game development. I don't run into them very often because my core focus is software and writing code, which Git is really good at. If you're doing models and you're doing textures and things like that, you're going to run into a few issues potentially with like asset merging and things like that, where people make two different changes to a model. And unlike code, model files and texture files don't merge very well. So that can cause some issues. LFS is for Git large file system storage. I don't remember exactly, but you'd use that for storing large things because Git typically struggles with very large sizes of files. Like if you're uploading videos into Git, it's not really designed for that. And because the system is optimized for smaller pieces, it runs into some issues. That's what LFS tries to do because it virtualizes your storage. There are a few other options for game developers on Git. I don't really know them. But for our purposes, for what I do, Git works great because I typically don't have large like visual assets or music or anything like that would cause issues here. There are other options. So I think Plastic or Perforce or SVN are some common ones. This is very off topic. But basically, source control, use what works for you. You're going to know better than I am. But I do want to call that out that like I use Git because that's my background and it works for what I do. Don't necessarily take that as an endorsement of you should always be using Git for game dev stuff. That's not the goal. So now let's see and jump over into this. All right, let's make mistakes. Let's create a class library. I guess this is another interesting option. We could take our entire script execution thing and throw it into a class library instead of even developing it in Unity. But yeah. So Git is useful for a whole bunch of things. One of the really useful tools that is unfortunately named is like Git blame. What that does is actually show you everybody that has changed a specific line or a specific part of your code, maybe a file or something else. And so that's actually really useful if you're working on like a big project, and especially in like a big company. That's where I typically tend to work, is like large software companies. And so the issue you run into is who did this and why did they do that? And you don't know who to talk to, because this file changed, but maybe it's a big file and there's lots of things. So you can actually just blame and say, who's been changing this line and who owns it? And then you can go and talk to them, because there will be an email address attached to that. And so you can reach out to them and start the chat that way, rather than just hoping that somebody figures that out. That's less useful for a smaller team. If you're like 4 people, you probably know everybody on the team and what they're doing, so not so useful. But if you have hundreds or thousands of people working on the same code base, knowing who's changing things and why is really hard. Another cool thing with that is you also get things like code lens, where you can actually see what people changed, and it'll actually like embed Git commits into that. Yeah, here's an example. This is a project that another project I'm working on, but this is a Minecraft server, or going to be. But you can see when I made a change. So I made this change last week, and I made it as part of adding configuration and a default page for the website for it. So you can see all of that as part of this, and it's just inline in your editor, which is really cool. That's from a tool called GitLens if you're using Visual Studio Code. I think JetBrains Rider and Visual Studio have similar things. I'm less familiar, so but that's that. Interesting. We went on a very long tangent about running Git init. So .NET new class library creates a new class library for us. Let's go and open that. Oh, I did it in this directory. Cool. That makes that easy. This is small, so let me make this bigger. But we have code-n dot is a really cool command if you have Visual Studio Code on your computer, or I found out this also works with JetBrains Rider if you use that. This will open up this directory in a new version of Visual Studio Code. So if I run this, I get a new window with Visual Studio Code at that location, which makes it really easy. There's also, if you're already in Visual Studio Code and you're maybe using the integrated terminal, instead of -n, you can use -r, and that will reuse the current window to reopen that. So if we wanted to go up a directory, like code-r ... and that will swap us and move us up a directory. Random tips, because why not? These are the kind of things that I feel like you are really hard to say in a video, but come across really well in streams. So let's go and jump into .NET. That's not right. Cool. There. Perfect. All right. Detours aside. So I created a class library. I think what I want to do, and this might be hard because actually thinking this through, I did want to go up one. Let's get rid of this. All right, I'm going all over, but this is fine. So we're gonna go up one step, because I'm going to try something new that I think might work. We're going to open up the new class library I created and double click that so it stays open. And then I'm also going to open up this, which is, does this work? I don't know if this will work. Target framework version. There we go. Interesting. We're just going to swap this in and see what happens. So let's go into our .NET project and do a .NET build. If this works, it doesn't. That's unfortunate. target framework version was not recognized. What have I done? Is this going to work? Or am I going to have to... Well... Oh. Well, that's because that's a different thing. Where target framework directories? All right. I'm really bad at figuring my way out through CS projects, so we're just going to go and look for a target framework. Like that doesn't exist. Perfect. Okay, never mind. I'm going to skip all of this, and we're going to go back to here. Sure, this will work. Let's go and open up our NuGet that, I guess, and let's just plug this in and see what we get. All right, so we get our scripting package. So let's go and add that. Yeah. So basically all I'm doing is pulling down these packages. Unity doesn't support NuGet natively, so this is the best option that I've found in the past. Things are falling apart. To actually make this work. What this does is say go and pull down all this other stuff, and then we should be able to find it inside of, not here. We didn't build it yet, so it should only be in our object stuff. So if we do a .NET build now, things are falling over. We should see this. And now inside of here, we have a whole bunch of things. Do I even need this? I don't think so. Train. So let's go and see if I can find my package. I think this might be harder than I thought, because I don't think this works the way I want it to. Let's pull this open. So what I need to do is pull down the DLLs for this package. Again, Unity doesn't have NuGet support natively, so you have to kind of go through these in order to get this to work. And if you insert the package reference into the CS project file for Unity, it just goes away, because Unity will regenerate that. So we need to find this and add it to our resources or something to make it work. I don't know where it goes though. So I do this so infrequently, I don't really remember how any of this actually works. So I do have a project where this does work though. So let's go and find that. So I think I did this differently for that. So we're gonna figure out how to get this into our project. I don't know how. So how does this work? There's a .NET list. All right, let's make this bigger so we can see a little bit better. And what I want is some way to look at this. We'll find it eventually. What's your keyboard switches? It is a custom thing that I built. So it's using Zalite purple stuff. I can pull it up for you. But this is the Odin from keyboard something. And so I built it. So that's a thing. Don't necessarily recommend that. It was a whole thing. But it is Zelio purple switches. These ones. So these are more expensive if you're familiar with like cherry switches. These are slightly more expensive than that. But they're tactile, but they're also lighter than I found with cherries. So anyway, if you're curious, I'm using these. If you're buying a pre-built keyboard, like one that already has switches installed, these are really hard to find on those, which is part of the reason why I built one. But yeah, there's that. If you're interested in a fun project, actually building a keyboard was really fun. It's a pretty straightforward thing, especially if you have like plug-in switches that just don't require soldering. It's a really fun thing to do. So that's all it is. And then all of the big keys, so like shift and space, etc., all of those have rubber O-rings around them so that they are less loud. And that's because I do recording, and like space bars especially are quite loud. So just to cut that down for all of you, there's some O-rings in there. That does change how the keys feel. So if that's something you care about, think about it. But there you go. Hopefully that's useful. Let's see here. We're doing this. A K8 Pro. I don't know what that. Oh, with hot swaps. Perfect. That's exactly what this is these are all hot swapped. Made a MIDI controller. I've been looking at that. I thought that would be really cool. Like one of the things that I've been trying to do is I picked up a Steam Deck last year with the intent of using it in streams like this, because that would be really cool. I have not used it. But it would be really cool to have like a custom thing to like control transitions and do all those extra things. And building a custom keyboard seems really cool. Especially there are some cool ones that have also like dials and things, so you can adjust not just on and off with a button press, but you can also adjust like across a linear spectrum, so you can actually change like volume, for example, which seemed really cool. So let's see. I don't know what I'm doing. Can I just swap this to target? Does this work? Net core 2. And then if I do a build with this, what happens? It breaks. Ah. Okay, it's not compatible with that. So let's try standard. Oh, so nullable is a newer feature. This is part of the Unity thing, because Unity is on an older version of .NET than like .NET 7, which was released like a couple weeks ago. So some of the things that my default project had aren't compatible with that. Global using directive is not available. Perfect. Okay, we can fix that. Can we? What? Oh, implicit usings. We don't need that. And we're just going to clean everything out. That should hopefully get rid of everything. And then do another build. And let's see if that fixes it. So I did make a video about implicit usings. File scope namespaces. Oh, that's this. So we're just reverting all the old changes. So file scope namespaces is this. The implicit usings feature I deleted generates automatic usings based on the project type. We got rid of both of those, so this can just go away, actually. We don't need it because we're just using this to pull in the scripting libraries. So here's this. Did that work? I don't think so. .NET restore. Why don't I remember how to do any of this? All right. Well, we're going to just make this work then. So we're going to do a C# script, which doesn't exist. Well, that could be part of the problem. There we go. All right. So what I just did there is a reverse lookup, I think that's the name for it. What that does is if you hit Control R, this works in Bash and in PowerShell. What that does is does this. So you see this, we have this like BCKI search. I forget what that stands for, but it's something that's looking back through all of the commands you've run. And so I was like, I wanted to add a package. So we know that the command for that is .NET add package. And so we can see the last command that had that, and we just hit tab and then we get that command. So then we can actually run it. And then I just had to go and update it so that it was actually pointing to the right thing. So that's all that was. So let's get rid of that and go and find our thing. I swear this is how I've done this in the past. All right. Well, we're just going to use it. Well, none of that's right. This is in the scripting thing, right? I don't know what I'm doing. So what I'm trying to do is use this so that I can actually pull it in. So I want to use this library so that we can actually have access to it, and I believe that's what's preventing us from actually having our thing. So if I do a C# script test, right? Does that even build? It doesn't. Oh, can't declare a variable of it. Okay, perfect. That means it actually worked though. So instead of here, nothing. Why did I decide to do this live? This was a mistake. Let's see here. Well, I guess let's go and see if I can remember how to do this. .NET download NuGet package. What do I need to do? .NET add package, perfect. But how do I actually get that? All right, let's try this. More information, do that. So we've added the package reference, installing a specific version. That's what we did. Listing will show them. And then .NET restore, we did that too. All right. Where does NuGet store these? Where does NuGet store packages? This doesn't seem right, but let's try it. Sure. What were we looking for? We were looking for Microsoft C#. Not C#. Code analysis. There we go. Scripting something. This. Cool. So there we go. Oh, but that's not what we want. So this has the package, but it doesn't have the DLLs that we actually need for this. So if I run this, I don't know what this is going to do. Something. Oh, I remember what I did. Let's do this. I don't remember why I had to do this, but I remember this working, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to go and open the project in Visual Studio, because I think, oh, don't want to do that. Let's go grab this. And then we want to jump into our Unity folder, ignore all of the projects. I do too many things. And let's go and grab our C# thing. What did I call it? Unity C#. There you go. So let's open this. And then I believe this forces it to download the actual package. Because I think that gets used by Visual Studio. It's already doing some things. Because something just happened here. Whatever. So if we look at this, does this work? It does. Neat. All right. So we got there eventually. So this is the Net Standard 2 version. The downside of this, the way that I did this, is this isn't going to have any of the dependencies. So this might not work great. I forget how Unity does this, so we're just going to put this in our resources folder and it'll probably work. And then we can rename that later if it doesn't. And then errors. That's what we should get. So let's see here. Hopefully, if this works, if this just like functions, I'm more concerned. There we go. It's broken. Will not load due to errors. Perfect. Perfect. So then what we're going to do is go and find all the things that it needs that are no longer working. So what I'm doing is importing the thing that I want and then going and getting all the things. The way I was trying to do this also should work. And I want to say it's going to pull things in. So if I do this, maybe. There we go. I remember here, if I build this from inside of here, what happens? Something breaks. But I remember it pulling in the package references for us to use. But that hasn't happened. Also, how did this happen? And how does this work? That doesn't make any sense. The reason is we have global usings in net standard 2. And maybe I'm getting my versions confused, but I don't think that's a thing. Either way, that's a separate issue. This is fine. Let's go up here. Ignore all of this. What's in here? Anything good? Oh. All right. Perfect. All right. So we got lost for no reason, but that's okay. Now we just need to go and grab all the other things. So we grabbed our scripting thing. And so the next thing it's saying we need is Microsoft Code Analysis C# and Code Analysis and collections.immutable and scripting. So we have 4 things. I can't make this bigger. And it's on my screen, so you can't see it anyway, because I'm bad at paying attention to that. But we need these 4 things. We need these 4 things there. So I need to add this and this and this and this. So let's do that. That's not right. Let's go here. And we can just move this over so I can see. And then I think we just need to make these all line up. This is going to be hard because actually it should be fine, because as long as they're all net standard 2, I think it should be good. Version mismatch might cause a whole bunch of issues. The thing NuGet solves for you is it tells you what the dependency version of things are, because if you're relying on a different version, things might not exist. So this might cause a whole bunch of pain, but it might also work. So we're going to try it. If not, I will skip this and do something else. Worst case, I can pull it from the working version of the project, because the code we're using, it should be the same. We're just pulling in a newer version is the only difference. But we should be targeting net standard 2, which Unity should support. So we should be good there. What's the benefit we get from the pain? So this makes the project work. So what we're doing is we're pulling in the C# scripting library. What this is Roslyn, which is the compiler for .NET, is what actually runs C# code. So the goal of this project is to actually embed that into Unity, so you can write a C# script into a Unity editor text box and run code from it. So you don't need to write a script. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to create any files or any of that. You can be running your game and run a script, and it will just do that. That's the goal. I have it working. We're just recreating it because I'm stubborn. So let's see. Yeah, okay, this is gonna cause a whole bunch of fun. Oh, that's annoying. So we need to add this Microsoft code analysis as a dependency here so we can actually pull it. And we need the scripting version as well, so we'll get that. Yeah, so I've been working on this for like a year-ish. I had a month off of work when I was switching jobs, and so built this thing, except I was very tired, and it was basically held together entirely by duct tape, which is not really fun to maintain or work on in going forward. So we're doing this with a little bit more thought this time and seeing if that helps. So let's do a restore and a build. All right, that's fine. It's not fine because we don't have our package. Oh, yes we do. No, we don't. Well, all right. Roller coaster here. Let's see here. So C# script is a static class. So let's do dot create. Hello world. Cool. Sure. Does this build now? Yeah, I agree with that. um, let's see here. The name script could not be found. That's because this is supposed to have a type associated with it. Object, string. How about string? Script could not be found. Okay. All right. At this point, I'm literally just guessing here. So we'll see what happens. Nothing good. Scripting. That's probably what we want. Actually, yeah, let's do this. String. Perfect. Making things up, but it works. Perfect. We have it building. So that was a lot of guessing. I have used these libraries before, so I kind of know what I'm doing. I'm not entirely clueless. But what this is doing, just because I just wrote code because I wanted to see what would happen. This is creating a new C# script. The string here is code, but it can be a immediate. So what I've done is I've escaped the quotes and made a string called hello world, which it returns. And then that script has a return type of string, meaning that when you execute this script, because all this is doing is just creating the script, it's not actually running it. When we compile and run this, we're saying it's going to return a string as the end output. Eventually, when we do this, we have to work with objects and then figure it out later, because we're letting random people write code that can turn anything in Unity. So it's a little bit more complicated, but this at least gets it compiling. And there we go. Get rid of all that. I wonder if maybe the thing I'm remembering is because I was using .NET Framework, I think, when I initially did this. So I might be having different thoughts now. And things might be behaving slightly differently because of that. I don't really know. Neither of those pulled the thing we needed. Well, we solved one of the errors, so let's go and figure out what else. Just so I can tell what's going on. C# scripting will not load due to the following errors. All right. So we still need the scripting reference and the C# reference and the analysis and collections immutable. This is not the right way to do this. So the part of the problem with doing this, one of the problems with live streaming code is when you make a poor decision, you kind of want to stick to it because otherwise there's just like dead air and as you try to figure things out, which might not be wise, but is what is happening. So we're just going forward with it. Hopefully that should get rid of this immutable issue. Again, we're not pulling in the extra dependencies. So all of these libraries that I'm pulling in have other dependencies that they're going to pull in, and that's going to just cause a compounding effect. But hopefully we'll slowly start dealing with things. All right, so let's work up from the bottom and get rid of things as we can. So this has an issue where it can't load the unsafe types. So let's solve that. Yeah, if we stop making progress with this, I will switch to the working set of references I have. But for now, we are actually making a little bit of progress. So we're going to just keep going. Let's see here. But yeah, anyway, while we do this, feel free to ask anything you'd like, and we can chat while I try to figure out what is going on. Let's see here, lib. So one thing I am doing, I'm not really talking about this, but I am making sure inside of this lib directory, different versions of .NET, these all need to match. So I'm using .NET or Net Standard 2.0. Everything that I'm importing has to have that version. Otherwise, it's not. I'm not pulling it in. So that's how that works. I need to clear this. And where's the rebuild option? I don't want to press that. Hello, welcome. What am I doing? Oh no. Actually, Jason, you might know this. I'm trying to import a series of NuGet packages into Unity. Am I overlooking some easy way to do that other than manually going and pulling every package in? Because that's what I'm doing right now, and I remember it not being like that when I did it last time. And so I'm sure I missed something. So if anybody has ideas, we can try those, because I don't actually know what I'm doing. So that breaks everything. Perfect. All I did there, the reason I just created that class in the entire was to trigger a recompilation. Scoped registry. No. What is that? Is this a thing that lets me just import NuGet into Unity? Because that would be amazing. This is not something I'm familiar with. Anyway. function metadata. Perfect. What did I do? All right. So one thing with all of these changes is Unity will not clear your compiler things. It's a Unity thing that you can register as source of packages. That sounds awesome. What's it called? A scoped registry NuGet? This is different than... Because I know the Unity package manager, but we're not pulling in packages from the Unity package manager. We're trying to get them from NuGet, and my understanding was that that didn't work. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. So we're not trying to reference an existing package. We're trying to pull in a existing NuGet library. Specifically, we're trying to pull in this one and get this working inside of .NET, or inside of Unity rather. And I don't think there's a way to make Unity's package manager look at NuGet registries, unless I'm thinking of something different. My understanding was that it looked at node-based stuff, so you could add like a GitHub node registry to pull in packages from there, but you couldn't do that to grab NuGet stuff. All right. While we figure this out, let's go and grab some more things. We are making progress, so. So we're not trying to make our own code accessible. We have existing .NET code, existing in NuGet, that we want to pull into Unity. That is not really designed or intended to be used inside of Unity. Which is part of why this is so annoying. Let's see here. And so I think we just have one more. We have just the code analysis library, which is here somewhere. Too many things. Which doesn't have a thing. Okay. Yeah, so one of the things I was thinking, one of the considerations I had was, what if we... Oh, there's an easier way to do this than what I'm doing. Sorry, thinking of ways to do this, and I have ideas now that are not this. But what we could do is publish our package. That would work. And then, yeah, I think create a class library and just import our custom class library instead and use that, because that actually has a few benefits. It means that you don't have to recompile our tool every single time. So at least all the common stuff that we're going to share between both sides of this tool, we could have as a class library and use that instead. And then we don't even need to do anything with Unity if we're doing it that way. That would just completely remove Unity as a variable there. That might make sense. That'd probably actually make this project a lot easier. So let's try this anyway. .NET publish. What does this do? Yeah, I think we're working on Net Standard 2, if I remember. Yeah. So the entire thing is based on Net Standard 2. But I think this should have just fixed it. So the difference between building and publishing is sort of based off of how .NET ends up working. You need to package all of the code that will need to be run, because people that are running your code, your published code, only are guaranteed to have the .NET runtime. They're not guaranteed to have the .NET SDK installed, which are two different things. So .NET code needs a .NET runtime to execute, unless there's a few other things done. So when we publish it, we get this, which should hopefully have just solved all of our problems. So I can just grab all of this. If I wanted to, I could grab everything, but I'm going to try to avoid that. But this is what I was expecting. This is why I was confused. I needed to publish the library that packages and ships all of the DLLs that are required from NuGet into a directory that you can then use. If you're just building or whatever, it's going to use your local stuff because you're still in developer mode. But if we actually try to publish this, we have to ship all of these DLLs to whoever's going to run the code, because they don't have your same libraries. So how to publish Unity package to npm and then create a scoped registry so you can. That'd be super cool. So that would actually be a really good way to ship this, because what I would like to do is just have like a custom GitHub package or GitHub repo that automatically builds a package for you, and so you can just point at the repo and just pull it in. Ideally, it'd be cool to ship that to this Unity store as well, because I think a lot of people just use the Unity store, but I don't think I can rely on that. So anyway, let's pull this in. What's gonna break now? Nothing, because those are all already there. Isn't the net output of a NuGet package install adding reference DLLs to your project? Yes. But as we were like, that's what I was expecting is what happens when you add a NuGet package is this. Well, we can actually kind of walk through this. So I added 4 just because I was tinkering with things. Really, we only needed 1, maybe 2. We needed this. But all of these packages, the reason this gets complicated is because if you want to use this scripting library, for example, you can't just include only that scripting library and just use it. That scripting library also has dependencies on other components that NuGet is smart enough to go out and say, oh, this requires this, which requires this, which requires this. So it can resolve that dependency tree. What I was having to do previously was manually go through and actually resolve that entire dependency tree, which is why it was so complicated and annoying. So by publishing it, we published the entire dependency tree to our output directory. And now everything's good. So I think what that means is if I go here, I should be able to do C# script dot create, and we want to create a script with command. Var script is equal to this, and I think this returns a generic thing, so we're just going to return an object because I don't know what I'm doing. I must, what? What error is this now? Okay, I'm going to ignore that. And we're just going to pretend like this is fine. Does this work? Nope. I need to add in a reference to assembly. Didn't we already do that? Code analysis. Oh, no, we didn't. So the return type is not included, so let's just add that. All right, we're making a mess, but it's fine. And now that I know how all of this works, this is something that can be automated, which should resolve a lot of these complicated bits. All right. And then this will finish, hopefully. Or not. All right. Does Visual Studio actually support pulling in NuGet packages into into a Unity project? I guess I should know that. If it does, because that would make this so much easier. And huh, okay. It sounds like people have solutions that are much better than mine, which is probably a good thing. So let's go and just drop this over here. I know Enterprise Edition does. Well, I think I should have Enterprise Edition. I'm pretty sure. If not, I can get it. But yeah, that'd be cool. Maybe I can go and track somebody down who would know more about the Visual Studio Unity tools. And we could do something with that. So I might know somebody there. All right. Well, I feel like I should know all of this, and I don't. So let's do this script dot something. There we go. And so we want to run this and run async. I feel like this isn't going to, that's not what I want. Sure. So we can compile this. There's a cancellation token. We're just going to ignore that. And then do script dot run. Or does that gives me a runner and then I can run it? Or not. Oh, the output is a enumerable set of diagnostic information. Interesting. Okay. That's not what I want. Vim has a rough learning curve. That is correct. Oh, learning Vim for the first time. Ooh. That is a journey. There's some interesting things there. There's some really cool things you can do in Vim. I learned a bunch of them, and then I didn't use Vim for like 4 years and forgot them all. What I've been using instead of Vim is if you have Visual Studio Code, I've been using the remotes option. So you can do the remote explorer, and there's a bunch of random other projects in here, but you can actually SSH in with Visual Studio Code and get a full working environment on a remote computer this way. and use it exactly like you'd use Vim, because typically I found myself using Vim as a tool for like, I need to SSH into this computer and then edit something. I've been using Visual Studio Code for that lately, just because that works. So, yeah. All right. How do I run this? I used to know how to do all of this, and I've forgotten. Options, return type. Oh, you're using Vim inside of Rider. Okay, that makes sense. Run async. We don't have any globals, so we're just gonna leave that blank. And then we're going to wait. Do I need a delegate for this? Maybe. Uh-oh. What'd I break? I think we're fine. Failed to load. Oh no. All of my code is broken. Evaluate async. That makes sense. So there's a few different ways to do this. I should talk a little bit about what's going on. C# scripts are like a combination of code. The way this works is actually really cool. So you saw there was an option when I was running this to provide a set of globals, which you can actually provide as like a dictionary of, here's the stack. Which what that does is means that you now have access to like local variables, so people can actually write into memory and get them back, and do all sorts of other fun things with that. I'm doing something similar. Editor detail. Do I need one script from the main and one script for editor? So you can, if you're designing your own tool, you can design that in any way you want. My recommendation, and this isn't a requirement, is to swap this so that it, so you have your UI, the thing you're presenting to your users, separated from the behavior of your code. The advantage of doing something like that is when you swap those things, it works more. If things change, if you need to present something differently, you want to change how you're rendering your script or something, you can do that without having to rework how your actual code behaves. You can do that in just one way or the other. So you can actually kind of change whatever makes sense. Yeah, I think what Jason is saying, where you want to separate your data that is representing your thing and your view that is presenting that thing. If you think of like YouTube, where you're watching this or something else, the video doesn't have to exist inside of YouTube, for example. The video is its own separate data type, and how YouTube wants to render that is going to change, even from this live stream versus if you come back to this tomorrow when it's just a video on demand. You'll see different things. And so it kind of separates those things and makes your code a little bit nicer. I find that having lots of smaller pieces of code can make things a little bit easier to understand and easier to kind of move through, so you can actually understand it. Turn like a quick button. Don't have. Yeah. I need to play more with Odin. That's a tool that I've seen for years now, and I've always thought it was cool, and I just never have had the time to dive into it and learn more. So we've been very distracted, but that's okay. This will work. So let's just run this async and just wait. Is this? Oh, this isn't going to return anything because we're running it. Yeah. And then the wait doesn't actually have to be there. I'm just throwing that in so that we can break Unity. I'm going to take it out. There we go. And then we'll see what happens here. I feel like we need a delegate for this. If you're unfamiliar, what a delegate is it's going to, when we're working with multi-threaded code, a delegate will allow you to assign a specific piece of code to a specific place. When we're working with multi-threaded things, like this tool is designed to be multi-threaded, so you can compile your scripts asynchronously and not have to like break your code and wait for it. The downside of that is Unity doesn't support that. Async code and like UIs or anything graphical don't usually play very well together. Typically, any changes that you want to happen to the UI is going to cause this. So one of the things that I want to change is being able to compile this script asynchronously. So doing all of the compilation on a background thread, so your UI doesn't freeze and nothing happens. But then when you need to run it, it all just works. That's the goal. Yeah, I think that's a good idea of doing like a do stuff thing and then running that. There's also like other ways to do that. You can create like a lambda expression and just evaluate that. And I think that should just work. But let's... Something's still broken. Yeah, so we've done this project before, and my isolation of issues was bad. And so we ended up running into some issues where everything ended up in the same place, and it caused a whole bunch of issues. And so we were running into, like, the big issue was if you were doing anything against like a complicated scene, it would take forever because you'd be like, find all game objects and then sort them by this. That's slow. And so trying to continuously do that causes a few issues. So that might be an option. Running things as coroutines could be, is something that I've considered. The downside of like coroutines and doing things that way is that it requires you as the person, the end user, the person actually implementing and working with this, to actually make changes to how you're writing your code. And I want this to be something where you don't have to think, where you don't have to like consider what's happening. I have broken this in ways that I don't understand. So I don't know how to fix this. My editor is gone and doesn't want to come back. So we run our command, and then we'll log out, ran the script. Cool. All right, errors, perfect. Multiple errors. Code analysis is missing. But it's right there. where is this? Okay, we're gonna see if this works. We're just gonna try to re-import everything and see if that fixes our issues here. What is does Unity have tasks that will delegate access to resources? Because the issue that I was running into is like, fetch all of the physics bodies in the scene and apply an upwards force, or make every physics body static, or something like that. The issue with that is you can't do that on an asynchronous thread. It has to be done on the main thread. And so I spent a bunch of time trying to implement like async runtimes in the last one. I had like waitings things and ways to cancel like infinite tasks and things like that if you accidentally wrote an infinite loop so you didn't crash Unity. But none of it actually worked, because as soon as you tried to access anything in the actual scene, Unity would start throwing errors. So if there's a way to do that while on a separate thread so that Unity doesn't break, I think that would solve a lot of the issues that this project ran into initially, that I'm kind of trying to architect around now. It is trying to figure out how to make that better. I hope this works. Can you share the context of the thread? I don't like, so yes and no. I can access the variables. It's possible for me to access variables from the other thread. The downside with that, the reason that doesn't quite work, is because I'm asynchronously asking like, what are the physics bodies in this current scene? Or what is the position of every object in this scene, and sort by that. But I'm doing that asynchronously, which means that while I'm asking that question, the Unity scene is still processing frames and doing your update methods, which means that those objects aren't going to be in the same places as they might have been at the start of that request. So things can change during that, or might even be created or deleted between when I started it and when I ended it. It's one of the reasons why concurrent things get hard. It's also just one of the reasons why this like doesn't work. If you've worked with WPF or Maui or something like that, you almost always need a delegate to go back and change your UI. Okay. I'm confused. Oh. We deleted our code analysis reference. I'm confused. I don't know why I can't just drop something in and have this work. Huh. Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of like weird asynchronous things. It seems like a really easy problem of like, I just want you to add this thing and then run it. But it turned out it wasn't as easy as that. And it got really annoying and my brain hurt, so I stopped. That's the entire story. Is basically maybe there's a way to make it work. I could not think of it. Are we missing anything else? Nope. Did that? Yeah, perfect. All right, so we have this now. So if I do debug.log hello world and run this. It worked. Okay. Our script crashed, but that's okay. We don't care that happened, because the issue we're getting is that the code context doesn't have that, and we can change that, because what we need to do now is now provide a context, which is a good time for us to pivot, actually, and do the thing that I should have done initially, which is add more dependencies. The new progress thing. Progress dot start. Test. All right. I haven't looked at this, but you mentioned it, so we're gonna try this now. And then we're going to do a continue with progress.stop dot remove finish. So I'm assuming this returns a ID. Yeah. Var progress tracker. Executing your script. And then we'll just add progress tracker, and I'm going to also throw in a 5-second wait. That way we'll at least be able to see that this happened. I want this to be in front, I think. And this needs to be a lambda. Does that work? What have I done? Something bad. We can support actions with a state, so sure, you can get an argument. Why not? So all we did is tack on a continue with, so means when this finishes, when our command finishes, also end this and then wait. I think this might be out of order though. Because I actually don't want that. I want delay. Right? I forget how to do this. Here. Let's do this in a much better way. Let's move this to an async method. And then we can just solve everything there. I can't tell if it's thinking or if I broke something. All right. Okay, fine. Let's do private async void. We're gonna break all the conventions. Typically, you do not want to return a void async method. It causes some other issues. We're going to do it just because testing. Execute script. And then we'll start that and we will await this, and then we'll await task.delay. And then do this. And then just for fun, let's do progress tracker dot, not that. That's just an int. Progress dot. Is there a set status? Step label? Waiting. And this needs an ID. Unity really likes static stuff, don't they? So I'm doing the delay to wait. Just that is not going to be in the final thing, just because we're testing the set, because somebody mentioned it. But the code we're running right now is very quick. It's going to finish before we ever see this. So the delay is just adding a 5-second delay to wait this, so that things happen. The other alternative to a delay is like a thread.sleep. You should almost never use the thread.sleep. If you're using tasks, thread.sleep is not going to do what you think it's going to do. So just keep that in mind. But task.delay should hold things up. And so all this is going to do is just wait 5,000 seconds. And I think that should automatically run, so I think we're good. We'll figure that out. So let's run this, run that, ran the script. Well, that's not doing what I thought. I've screwed something up. But what? Have I forgotten how to use async stuff? Because this is finishing immediately. Debug is a Unity feature. So debug.log is coming from Unity. It is crashing because I haven't provided a context to .NET yet. Let's talk about that. Sure, why not? So when I'm running this, I'm saying C# script run async. What that's doing is compiling my code and running it, but it's only running the code in a separate thing. So what's happening here is this is running and then it's going and finishing all of its extra stuff. But what that's, oh, so you might be right. But what ends up happening is with debug, the reason this is failing out is because debug isn't defined in the context that I've provided to the compiler that I'm using in this command, which might be small. So let's make it a little bigger. There. That's probably a lot better. So we have this run async. This is going to go and try to compile things, but if you look up here with the current script we have a whole bunch of using statements. This has none of those. So it doesn't know that we're running inside of Unity. We're not providing any of that context. So it doesn't get any of that stuff. Do I need to call execute script with await? I don't. I could. I probably should. But what this is basically doing is running this and then kind of firing in for getting it. So this will run and then it'll say ran the script. And then I imagine Oh, that might be why. Let's do a Pokemon exception. I called it a Pokemon exception because it catches them all. It's just catching all exceptions. You shouldn't do this in your code, but this will get us past this step. So we can run that. Throw our code here, run this. Ran the script. Did it finish? I honestly don't even know. Because I didn't add anything. So I think if we're doing this correctly, what I should be doing is doing a finally with all of this in here. And then these bits up here. Something like this. We're just going to get rid of our code for now. And then the awaits are just there because of this method. And there we go. And then everything's in the finally to finish this off so that we don't leave all of this. And then the done is just there so that I actually know what's going on. That's going to crash there. See how to use progress. There's a report thing. Progress. Oh. Got it. Okay. Cool. We should probably do this later. Otherwise we'll spend a lot of time tinkering with that, and that what I want to get done is we're actually kind of close to, which is being able to make this run. If we have a little bit of extra time, what I would like to do is add a configuration library so you can actually change the libraries that can import it automatically for you. So you can import your own namespaces, etc. so that it's a little bit easier to use. I don't know the best way to do that though, so we might not get to that. But what we need to do is provide a script options because we don't have any of those. So we're just going to throw in so I think my thinking based off of what I just kind of have been tinkering with the progress thing, I'll probably roll this into a video, probably sometime this weekend. And then we can have like just a separate video about progress, because this is something I'm learning, so then I can make it a little bit easier to find, because we're already like an hour or two, I don't even know, into this. And so people won't be able to find it if we do that. But if I've turned it into a video, like it'll be like 10 minutes or something, and people will be able to figure out how to use that, because that sounds interesting and it might be something people want to use. So I think that's my thinking. And then this is just tinkering to see what happens. 103 minutes. Wow. Thanks everybody for joining. So now what? Options. So this needs script options. So we're going to go and define these. Yeah, so that's exactly what's happening. So run async is running a command that we give it. And in order to do that, it needs a set of options telling it the context to run in. The reason for this is because it's not just going to import every library that's available to it to run your code. It's only going to import the things that make sense. So that's how all of this is going to work, is you're going to get some list of things. Sorry about this. Let's go and get rid of that. There we go. So all this is going to do is define those options, define the running context of how this is all working. Just like how we have usings up here, we're going to provide that extra context for these scripts so that I don't need to write, where is it? Unity engine? Sure. So for example, if I wanted to make this work right now, I think I could just write unity engine.debug.log, and that would even work. Kind of. We got something, but we didn't get a report that this actually did what I thought. Oh, because our options are failing. But either way, it gives us a way to actually run this. Yeah, I agree that tasks in Unity are a headache. Tasks in general are kind of a headache. Tasks made it a lot easier than what you used to do with threading. Like it's significantly easier than it was, but it's still quite complicated and kind of hard to understand. So hopefully we can make this easy. One of the really big problems that was in the last iteration of this tool was exception handling was very poor. So if things did not work, or for whatever reason you ended up returning like null, that wasn't handled very cleanly and could break the entire UI and like render the tool pretty much useless. We're gonna try to fix that. Anyway, here's this. Let's go and provide a private static read-only script options. We want script options dot something. Probably new, I think. I do have a list of how to do this, so I probably don't need to do all of this, but file path, don't care about. What I do care about is namespaces. And we want at least the Unity engine inside of that namespaces so that we have a reference to that. And I think that's it for now. And compilation info. What is this? Not what I want. It's a whole bunch of extra stuff. I do want script options, but I don't remember what. Because I think this is a internal class, external class. Either way, let's go find out. It's the circle in the bottom right. Are you talking about inside of Unity for docking the progress window? Is that down here? Sure. There we go. Oh. Cool. And then that actually shows you the because that's from the progress indicator that we had. So that's neat. Doesn't contain a constructor. I'm learning all sorts of fun things. Yeah, I think that's a new thing because I don't remember that. So many cool tips. What is this? This is an internal class, so we're already in the wrong place. Oh no, it's some of this stuff is internal. The constructor is internal, but I was doing this wrong. Okay, so I think it's a builder pattern. So instead of all of this, we do script options dot default dot with namespace imports references, I think. Add imports. And this is just takes a params list, so we can just provide a string. Neat. How's that? And now we have these options here. So if this works, I can just run debug.log and it will work. We can change this later, but I just want to test this. Been added 4 to 5 years ago. Wow. Okay, I am very behind the times then on that. All right, let's go and grab this. And let's get rid of the Unity engine. So remember, this used to break, and now we can run this with all of our stuff. And we don't get a message. That's a problem. Because this should be writing out to our logger. So get rid of the catch. Oh, hey, that's a good point. Let's get rid of all of this, actually. There we go. Yeah, that should probably work. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why Pokemon exceptions are bad. Because it makes your code run, but it doesn't always make it run. Perfect. All right. Hyper namespace name Unity engine could not be found. Okay, so we've moved on then. We've added Unity engine to our imports, but we haven't included it in our references, so we need to add that too. So add references of Unity engine. I don't think this works. Right? This isn't a string. Oh, it is a string. Perfect. That makes it easier. Good call though on removing the exception, because I wasn't thinking of that. One of the things you miss in streams. All right. What have I done now? So the problem is we're not including this as expected. We're doing weird things. And there's some way to do this. Full path? That is the full path, I think, unless I'm misunderstanding. But I think what I want is, instead of doing this with a string, I think, if I remember, this is expects to go like Unity engine dot how do I get the I'm forgetting. So I could do the get type. So what I could do is do debug dot get type, and grab the assembly like this. or we could do type of rather, just because it's like that, and then that gets us our assembly. And then we just need one of these. All right. So what this is doing is actually giving the assembly of what we need. Yeah, type of. And then that will actually make it all work, hopefully. And that should actually provide the entire assembly to the compiler so that we know what we're doing. And hopefully, now we run this. Method or operation is not implemented. What does that mean? Well, this is new. Load from stream. All right. Let's go to Stack Overflow and C# script use include library, because that's what we want to do. We want to include a different include things. None of these are what I want. Because I don't think that's what we want. And this is just the generic how do you run code, and it looks quite old. Yeah, 2008. So that's before this. Include namespace in execution path. Maybe that'll work. So keep in mind, I don't know. I actually don't know how to use these, but with imports, my assumption is that this would override the existing ones, which are with references, which maybe that's fine. Maybe we don't care if that happens. What's going on here? Oh, but what's going on here with this is I'm pretty sure this actually overrides what's going on. I can check the code and make sure. But if we look at the default thing, you can see everything that is included in these references. There's a lot of pre-existing things that are already pulled in to use. So my thought was, let's keep it. Looking this over, very little of this is actually useful from a Unity side of point or a side of view. To be honest, I don't know if it actually deletes it. I'm guessing. But that's my assumption with versus add, just based off of the naming. That's the conclusion I would jump to. This code is open source, so we could go and check. Oh, we could probably check it right here. With imports does this, which goes, which one's it doing? IEnumerable, this runs this, which does this. And then, yeah, so with imports, you can see it's just swapping out. Let's check immutable array. What's that do? Items is default. Iterates over all the items. If any of them are null, then it throws a null exception. So that's just validating that nothing's null, I think. Because is default is null for arrays. So since it's an object type, it would be null there. Otherwise here, it's just looking through and seeing if any of the items in your list are null. If they are, it's going to throw a null exception again. Otherwise, it just returns the items, which then gets assigned to your imports. Whereas if we go back here and look at our add imports, where is that? Add imports. does a concatenation. So that bubbles up to this, which concats your two things and then combines them. And then does that. So the only difference between add and with is that add is in addition onto existing imports, whereas with is going to replace what existing imports would exist with your new set. That's the difference. And all that was just F12ing into this and then looking at what the code does. For these, they're one line, so it's not too difficult. So that's all that is. So I don't think we want that. With references and with imports, does this support assembly? No. Okay, perfect. So we have our Unity engine as our import and our assembly as a reference. Does order matter? It shouldn't, because this is going to be doing very similar to what this is doing, where you have this list of your using imports. That's what we're trying to replicate here. We're just reproducing that in a brute force kind of way. We're actually kind of doing a little bit of both. We're doing this, where we have like our references and we're saying include this in our context, and we're having usings. So you can provide scripting libraries that you want people to have access to and remove things that you don't. There's different ways to do that. My goal with this is to make all of that configurable, so you can add new things or remove things that you don't want, just so that it's easy to do. Yeah, that's all that. And then it does all that, and check overflow, file encoding, optimization, warnings. And then these are just getters. Okay. So now I just need to figure out why this doesn't work, because it seems like it should. And that error that we were getting, I don't know where that's from. Not implemented build. Run async, all of that. Why would debug.log not be implemented? I don't know. I actually do not know the answer to any of this. But test. What happens if I do this? Oh, that breaks too. So something else is happening. We're breaking this in some other way. So what I'm going to do is change this quickly. So right now we're running this asynchronously. Instead, I'm going to evaluate this asynchronously and await that. And we want the results. So var results. I don't know what type of object this is. An object. Perfect. If I requested this, it's going to return type T, which would give us some type. Yeah, I think I want a script state. I think that's what I want. So can I just have that? No. What do I have to do to get a script state out of this? Run async with that Can I evaluate it with a script state? I cannot. Oh well. Let's do this then. We'll do run async, get our script state back. And so we're going to get a result back. What this result, the script state has, is a fun result for us. So we have the return value, which we can write out. It also has a set of variables. So like if you're writing to your stack, you could preserve that and do other fun things with that. Potentially you could even do like, you could use C# stack to build your own stack by evaluating it. You could do weird things. So let's write this out. Let's do results dot return value. Could I do result? I could. Should I do that? Maybe. I don't know. Because that would force it to wait. Both of these are going to do that. And then we end up here. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I think we might be just ran the script, still not implemented. So you say that, but you're not in before that because I've already done that. Where is it? .NET. Nope, that's the wrong thing. C#. Where is it? Ignore all the projects. Somewhere in here is a thing. So the original idea of this was to make a bot that you could run code from. So you could send code requests to a bot and it would run it, and then you'd get a result back. And so you could do that, like embed that in a Discord server, and then people could just run code in the Discord server and get text back. So you could use it as like a teaching thing. The downside of that is when you just run code, anybody can send you anything. And so you end up running code that you probably don't want to actually run. Like sending a bunch of web requests to some other random server, which I don't want people to be able to do. I forget where it is. It's somewhere in here. Distributed tracing, dependency injection, nope. Somewhere else. For multi-tab terminal, this is the Windows terminal. It's in the Windows store. It might be default on Windows 11, I don't remember. But then you get this fun hosted thing, and you can do all sorts of fun things. Like I have all these different profiles, so like if I want to be into Ubuntu, I just click this and now I'm in Ubuntu. Or if I want to SSH into one of my other servers, or run a .NET REPL or a HTTP REPL or something like that. It's really cool. And then you can like drag windows and do all sorts of things. And it's integrated into Windows, so other things work too. So like you might not know this, but if you actually go to like someplace in your Explorer window, like wherever this is, and you want to open this in your terminal, you can actually type like PowerShell, and it's going to go and open a PowerShell window right there. So now we're in that directory that I was in Explorer in PowerShell. You can also do this by just typing WT if you have Windows Terminal installed. And that's going to open your default profile in Windows Terminal for that. So you can use that to like get into really quick things. So there's lots of fun ways you can kind of work with this. If you want this to work or you're trying this and it doesn't work, if you go into settings and then you change your default terminal application, just make sure that's set to Windows Terminal, and then you're good to go. And that will replace like your bash console. So if you're used to the command prompt, you can run that too. It just looks a little bit nicer because it's got a modern thing. And then the background flag there is just a shader that I built, which I can turn off, I think. There we go. And that's just a separate thing. So that's all that's going on there, is you just get fun things, and then I just add that because it's fun. Yeah, thank you so much for joining. If you're late, I'll leave this one up on the channel, so you can always go back and catch any of the things you missed. This is a mess of me not knowing what I'm doing, but we're learning, so it's fun. And yeah, these are my favorite types of streams, where I just show up and we learn things together, because that's when I'm having fun, is when I'm learning things, and hopefully you all get to learn something cool along the way too. So like, if you're still defaulting to command prompt, it all still works. So like, if I wanted to default to command prompt, I can just switch this to my default somewhere in here, and just set like Windows Terminal as the default shell. And then the only difference is you get all the fun like appearance stuff, so you can change your fonts and your stuff like that. For example, if I need to make it bigger, Control Plus works here. Whereas if I try to run this in command prompt, that doesn't actually work. You have to like open up properties and change it, and it's annoying. So this fixes that. It also does really cool things, like it has a command window somewhere in here. There. So that was Control Shift P. That opens this, and we can like split our window. So I can do like split pane right. Now I have two. And so if you're used to like I think it's tux in Bash, you get the same thing here, except you can also like open up different processes. So I can make this like WSL if I want. And now the right hand side is going to be in Bash, and the left hand side is in PowerShell. And they're both doing the same thing. So that's how all of that works. So but yeah, it's super cool. You just add it from the Windows Store. Same thing if you're interested in getting started with like WSL, for example. The Ubuntu thing is just on the Windows Store. So you just go to the Windows Store and find Ubuntu, like I don't know what this is going to open, probably something bad. So I'm going to open it up over here because I don't know what it's going to recommend. There we go. All right. Just normal stuff. All right, cool. So you get this. And then if you want, you can go and say like Windows Terminal, and it should just pop up here. And there you go. And then you just click install. It's already installed. So that's that. You can also do the preview version, which is gonna just get you features sooner. That may or may not be as stable as the main one. While we're talking about really cool extra things that you can do, very highly would recommend, where is it? Power Toys. If you're working on Windows, this is like a must-have, in my opinion, of things that you really want on your computer. And this just adds a whole bunch of extra tools that you can use for your thing. So for example, if you want to really quickly resize images, so if we're working with textures or whatever, you can do this. Or let's say I want to select a color on my computer, because I do that all the time. It has a shortcut for that. So we can actually just go and look up the color thing. So color picker is this own separate thing. So I have the shortcut set to Windows Shift C. And so if I go here and just do Windows Shift C, you can now see I have like this thing on my cursor that's actually like showing me all the fun colors anywhere on my screen. And I can just click. And now I have the hex code and the RGB code of what that color is, and complementary colors, plus the historical colors that I've clicked. So yeah, this is super cool. Power Automate is also super cool if you like reactive coding. Power Automate is the way to actually run like basically if you've used like if this then that, Power Automate is that, but for your computer. So you can add this tool to your computer and say, when I get an email, change my lights. and it can all be locally on your computer, or even like show this thing or play this sound or do all this other stuff, or even like add it to a spreadsheet. When I save this spreadsheet and some new data gets put into it, do this thing and create these files or whatever you want. It's really cool. So there's a whole bunch of really fun tools that I think are just super sweet. I should do videos on these. This is a good idea. Directory Opus. I don't know that one. But I will take your word on that, and I will make a note to go and dive into these. But there is so many really cool toys that you have available to you as a like developer on Windows stuff right now that you definitely did not used to have. So it's super cool. A multi-monitor manager. So PowerToys does that too. I think if I hold Shift, I get this, which I think shows up on stream. Yeah. So what this is a configurable set of window management. So if you hold Windows and the arrow keys, you can move your window around. Typically this would go to like the left or right side of your window. But with PowerToys, what that does is replace it with custom things. You can actually define these by default on different monitors, and it lets you do different fun things. Monitor, not window manager. That I don't know. I'm sorry. Don't have an option there. So I probably should. Anyway. What are we making? We were making a scripting tool for Unity. So you can write C# script like this. It's very small because Unity stuff. But you can write code and you'll get a response back. It's broken. I've broken it and I don't know why. But that's the idea, is we want to do that. Don't worry about derailing this. The point of these streams is to kind of go and help answer things. Like if I didn't want to talk with you guys, I would be recording a video instead. So these kind of conversations and tangents are exactly what streams are great for. So the more questions you have, feel free to ask them, and we can do whatever. Like even if it's like off topic from what I'm normally discussing, that's cool. So what's going on here? It's not implemented. I think this is probably something that I can find a search result for. So let's do that. Well, that's probably not going to be helpful, is it? This is just going to say not implemented exception. Okay. Evaluate async is for expressions only. This isn't an expression though. Post error on chat. So this is the error. Method or operation is not implemented. It's like your default not implemented exception for whatever. So the reason I should walk back a bit. The reason I'm confused is because this worked before we did all of this. So if I do this, this is using the default thing now. So I know none of these. I have been using, you recommended Obsidian a while ago. And I've been using that quite a bit for notes. I found it, like, especially for keeping track of people, it's been super useful. For those of you that don't know, Obsidian is a markdown based note-taking app that lets you, well, that's not gonna help. It's also a rock, or a really hard thing in Minecraft. But this is the interesting bit. It's a markdown tool that lets you take notes and tag them. So when you tag your thing, it can link everything together. And then your tags can be used to kind of create a graph. And then from that, you can actually like find other related things. So if you, like I mentioned, I use it for people. So I'll talk about if I meet somebody and they do like audio stuff, or they do art, or they do software development, or they work with C# or Java or Python, I can tag that on their name. And then that way I can find all the people I know who know this specific topic. And then kind of like if I'm trying to find somebody, I can even do a search and say, who knows JavaScript, Rust, and backend development, or who knows Unity and shaders. You can kind of do those kind of searches and find different things. Overwhelmed by the Unity asset store sale. So the assets that I've been using the most are all free, actually. I've completely forgotten the name of it. But the one with shapes. Why can't I remember the one with shapes? Anyway, I have a list. This isn't a recommendation. I've picked up one of the things you used to get as a subscriber to Unity was you would get free asset store packages as part of that. So I have a lot of packages for Unity now that were just provided for free as part of that subscription thing. So not all of those are great. Those are all the ones currently in the project. Let's go and look at stuff I have. There's a lot here. But so Odin is cool. I think Shapes, if you really like programmer art and doing really cool things, Shapes is a very cool library. It does lots of like really cool geometric things really well. Yeah, Pro Builder, that's the one. And then this is just gonna load for a bit. The other one that I found really cool, they were demoing this at GDC this past year, was Rider Flow. So I've been using JetBrains Rider, but Rider Flow is their plugin specifically for Unity. I don't know if this is on the asset store yet, but this does some really cool things for like adding extra tools to your Unity editor, so you can actually like tag different assets and categorize them by color, and do other things. You can even get like a full script editor that embeds directly into Unity, so you don't even need to switch between editor and your code. You can just have them both open at the same time. So yeah, it's definitely a bigger thing because it's I think like including like lots of the entire like Rider code analysis stuff, all of that gets included with it. So it's pretty neat though. And I think it's still free. Yeah. So, but yeah, I was checking this out at GDC and it was really cool. So I'll call it out. And then the whatever editor you use, try to find the Unity plugins for that. That's free as well. Then try that. While we're talking about random things, if anybody is interested, I've been doing more work with PlayFab as well, which this. So if anybody's interested in learning more about this, I could do some videos on this as well. And this provides things like analytics and logins and matchmaking and high scores and statistics for your game online. So you can actually have like online services connected to your game really easily. It's pretty quick to integrate into like Unity, for example. So it's neat. Yeah. All right. Lots of tangents. Let's figure out how to fix this though. The reason I'm confused So PlayFab is cool because it has like all the default stuff. If you're familiar with Firebase, PlayFab feels like it has a lot of the simplicity that you get with something like Firebase, but it's designed specifically for gaming, and so you get some of that extra stuff. If you want to do something really complicated, maybe it's not going to have all of that available to you, but it can also call out to things like code, just so if you have like a Azure function or some other like serverless thing that you want extra code to do, you can connect that directly to an event or something like that. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, I have some demos that I put together for work regarding that, so I can repurpose that into something maybe more interesting for everybody here, and we can see what happens. What else? The downside with Unity assets is some of them get deprecated, and I've been using Unity for like 10 years now. So some of these are probably no longer some of these are no longer like a thing. But yeah. So PlayFab is part of Azure now. So it ties really well. Like if you're already using like Azure functions, it ties directly into that pretty easily. And it's also free to get started. You don't need like a credit card or anything like that if you want to try it out. That's pretty neat. They do have a demo. I don't remember. I don't know. Let's go and do like PlayFab get started Unity. They have like a Unity tutorial somewhere. Here we go. That will walk you through how to like get everything started up. And their extension just installs and you're good to go. So if you're interested in trying that out, this is all you really need. And like this is adding a login. The cool thing is it does logins in a bunch of different ways. So like if you are shipping like a mobile game, you probably don't want to have a you don't want to open the game up and have a login now or create account like screen. You want people to just be able to play your game, because creating accounts is a process that scares people away. So if you want more people to be able to play your game, you might just want to log in with like the device ID of their phone, which means that as long as they still have that phone, they'll still be able to get in and play the game and have the cloud saves and all of that. But they'll be tied to the phone and not the player. But then you can actually upscale that into like an actual account that has a login and password. So you can kind of roll everything up. And the whole onboarding process is really nice. So anyway, yeah, I think that's it. But yeah, that link I shared will get you here, and then you can explore this. It wouldn't be a lot of work for me to actually put together like a full demo of how to do all of this. I don't really have a game that needs it right now, so I'd have to make something really quick. But it's super cool. My favorite thing that isn't really called out here is one of the really neat things that you get with connecting online services to your game is you get online analytics. So that means that you're actually able to go and grab information about like how far did somebody get before they stopped playing, and then you're able to actually define something from that. So for example, if you're playing like Super Mario and nobody ever gets past like 1-4 because Bowser is invincible and blocks the entire end, so you can never complete the first 4 levels of Super Mario. This actually gives you that information and gives you a way to tweak it, especially with like indie games. If you're not shipping through something like Steam, it's really hard to like tell people that there's an update and get them to download the new version of your game. So by putting things like how strong a player is, how much health they have, how fast they move behind variables that you can change later, the really cool thing you get with that is that you can then do all of that without anybody having to download anything new. It just automatically gets synced the next time they launch it and are connected to the internet, which can be really cool. And it also means you can like segment people. And so if you want to test, this only works really with larger projects, but if you have a large number of people playing something, you can try 2 different values and maybe see, do people like it if this happens or if this happens? Like if you tweak the sword and it does 30 damage instead of 25, how does that change that? So anyway, a whole bunch of fun things there. Anyway, let's actually solve the problem that we've been trying to, and I've been procrastinating on. Yeah. Here's all of that. All right, so we have this. And now I'm using the default script options. So if I use Unity engine debug log hello. Okay, Unity engine does not exist in the context, so that's good. So that means the error changed. So adding these fixes that. But what if I only add the imports? Does that change anything? If I write my code correctly, does that change anything? And there we go. Cool. So if you use Godot, I was talking with somebody on the team and they kind of started a side project to actually add playfab for Godot. I can look that up. It's not, I don't think, officially supported. Godot playfab. Playfab. Yeah, here we go. So if you're interested in Godot, playfab in Godot, this is an option. It's still my understanding, and I'm not a Godot person, so I don't really know. But it's at least somewhat supported. They do have like a Discord too that is pretty responsive, that you can ask questions in. But if you're interested in trying it out inside of Godot, I would start here, because I think they already have examples and things that will get you up to speed and working with that. Not all the same features are available, but you can actually jump into it and get started. So yeah. All right. So many different things we're talking about today. That's okay. All right. We're just gonna wait for this to import, I guess. And it's going to take a long time. Interesting. I wonder, what did I do? Should be fine. So what I'm doing here is swapping out what's actually happening in my code. So we know with the script options.default, it can't find Unity engine to run this. But we get a not implemented exception when I try to do this with something else. So we are going to swap in both of these and see what happens and try to use that. So this compiled, and if I run this now, I get lost. So we'll run this again. Unity engine cannot be found. That makes sense because we changed the imports. So if I remove the import and just add the reference, does that work? And if so, what changes? And so that runs, and then we run this, and the method is not implemented. So I'm wondering, is this because I'm using the debug class and then trying to get the assembly from that? Like if I move this out and maybe put this here, for example, instead of attaching that to the script, what happens. Var test. Can I remove the debug? I don't think so, because I need to actually access the assembly. But what I'm trying to do is actually test exactly that. Is if I can use something else to get this reference. Because if we now get this whenever I have to do the onGUI call, then I know the issue is that not that my script is not working, but it's that this assembly call is what's breaking this. So that's what I'm trying to isolate right now, is because I don't actually know what's breaking. And that's making debugging this really difficult. And so hopefully, if I do this, it seems fine. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So at least now we know this works, which means the add references is part of our issue. Well, that's not right. What's going on here? There. All right. So I think the next option is to jump here and go into our with imports. So we already walked through that code a little bit, and both of the differences is behind the scenes. What's happening is when we do add, what ends up happening is eventually it bubbles up to this function. And what this function is doing is a with imports, but it's concatenating. And so that's concatenating the existing things and then doing that. But you're saying I should swap these. Let's try that. And that would probably be a good indication that I should stop being stubborn and actually look at documentation. But oh well. So let's see what happens. No worries. People are joining in and out all the time. People definitely do not watch these kinds of streams for the entire 2+ hours of them. They kind of tune in and tune out. So if you're joining and you don't know what's going on, ask and we can talk about it. So debug log hello. Then we run this. All right, same issue. So I don't think order is the issue. And we eliminated this as a potential issue. We could have also done that because of the run async. It's breaking here, not when we're constructing our script options. So this is the function that's breaking this call. Whatever we're doing here, it doesn't like. And so what if I do this? That shouldn't change anything, should it? Make sure we clear this and run it. All right, exact same issue, perfect. And basically all I'm doing is eliminating different things. Let's get rid of all of that. Hello from Turkey, awesome. We have so many people joining. No worries about English. I don't think it shouldn't matter that it's a local thing. We can try it. There's no harm in trying things. So let's throw this in like this. And then that creates all of that. And all we're doing is just adding all of these different things, adding the options, and then things are happening. Let's All right. I guess commenting lines out is a lengthy task. There we go. So even non-Unity code breaks. That's the interesting thing. So just running like a string also breaks. So something is happening that I'm not quite positive of. What we can do is figure out what's going on. So we can go into assets, into link for Unity, into all of the other fun stuff that we have going on here. Editor. And I want to open this. And so this is the existing project. This is what I've already done. And so what we can do is figure out what I did and see what worked. And I think you can already see why it's a mess. There's a whole bunch of random things going on here that don't need to happen here. This is not necessary. Anyway, we're learning. So inside of here, there's an execution result. This is GUI stuff again. So query executor. This looks helpful. Default assembly and default imports. So we define both of those, and then default with imports and with references. And so the difference is we were using a transform. Why would that be different? I don't know, but we can try. So Unity engine.transform, plug that in instead. Should be the same thing. Oh, did I miss a question about what we're actually doing? Can you try running non-independent code? Oh, wondering what we're doing. So we are integrating Roslyn, which is the compiler that you use with C#. So when you write .NET code and try to compile it, Roslyn is the thing that compiles that. It's the thing that actually does all the work to compile your code. It's also available as a library that you can include in your projects. So we're including that in Unity. What that means is that we'll have a text box in Unity that you can actually type C# code in and run code. And then you can use that as a way to test things in your scenes. You can actually like find all of the objects in your scene and do certain things, or maybe move the player to a specific point in the scene, or do any number of other things that you might need to do, whether that's like spawn an enemy or change a value for every type of component or whatever else makes sense. You can do all of that through scripts instead of having to manually do that. Even like level design, if you want to rotate all of your torches by 90 degrees, this gives you a way to do that really quickly, because you can just write a script that finds them all and then rotates them, and you don't need to like create a temporary script in Unity to do that. You can just write the code to do it. So that's what we're trying to do. But yeah, we have this with references and imports. And what am I missing? So if we jump back here, this is what we're currently doing. Get executing assembly is just going to get the current assembly. And then all of these are just getting specific parts of Unity and using that. Yeah, basically we can't run any code right now. Something is breaking. that's causing our entire script not to run. And I don't know why. And this is what I was using in the existing thing. Apparently we were constructing it live. That's interesting. We were creating it twice. Why? Okay, cool. So this is what's happening here. We have the script options, default with imports, and adding references. I don't know why we're doing both of them in different ways. That's weird. But we have both of those. Here's our imports and here's our references. If I jump over here, here's our imports, here's our references. I know these work. So we're just going to do this. So yeah, the reason we're doing all of this again is because it was really useful, but nobody else could use it. So it was useful and fun, and also terrifying and scary. In the sense that like nobody else was going to ever want to touch this. And so we're trying to keep that in mind and build something a little bit nicer now. So we're trying to make something that's a little bit more accessible and useful. So if we swap this in with default imports, or default assemblies rather, and default imports, what happens? Who knows? This definitely can't go wrong, so let's try it. Let's open this. I never know if this is actually compiled or not. Load from stream. All right. We're going to do something else. Let's attach a debugger and see what happens. Oh, not that. I didn't want to do that. Attach to Unity, debug, cool. Let's see if this works. So my hope is that we'll learn something a little bit more, enable debugging, and then that's going to recompile our entire project. Great. And then we should be able to trigger that breakpoint when we run this, and something should change, hopefully, and then I can solve it. I hope. I don't know. But the error that I'm getting is not enough information for me to actually figure out why this is breaking. So we're doing this instead. Run. Perfect. All right. So we hit this, and that's a whole bunch of things. So this is just inside of our execution stuff. We should be able to just resume. No. Oh, that's disappointing. I don't know. To be entirely honest, I don't know what's going on. All right. We're dropping async stuff because I don't want to deal with it. And all this is going to do is just remove that await and see what's going on. I think this will make our stack a little bit easier to untangle, or I'll just get confused. We're already to the point of I don't know what's going on, so it's probably fine. But if we run this now, I can do this. Method or operation is not implemented. Okay. Exactly the same. The only difference that we get from this is that now we have the entire UI as part of this stack trace. So instead of our stack trace starting here with the evaluate script, it now also includes all of the GUI stuff going on. But I don't think that's helpful. I remember struggling with this as well when I was first doing this. So we're probably close. Huh. Script options, continue with the result. And then it does the property thing. And then format exception 8. Okay, that's a separate exception handler. And then create property list. So where is this run from? Let's go find it. And then that gets run from our UI. So run function, can run function, run the thing, process all the results, fix hacks. Okay, great. Yeah, I agree. There's probably some testing that needs to go on here to make this a little bit safer. My goal is to completely isolate, like, so right now, if we jump back here, everything is done in this editor window. That's not how it's actually going to work. We're going to have a separate thing that manages the entire state of compilation. And so it does things. But this all worked in the other code and doesn't work here. So something's changed, or I'm doing something wrong, or something else has happened. The other option is we go here and run async. Yeah, exactly. So we can run async, and I think that's what we're doing in here, right? Yeah, we're just getting an object back. So that's all the same, except we get a task here, and then we just continue with our result. So continue with tt.result, and then we do something with that. Result. So that's what's happening next, and then after that, it creates a property list and returns that. So this is returning a list of properties as a task. And then how is this actually working with these? Because then this gets that results thing, which is an async task. Oh, and then it ties a whole bunch of other things to it. Oh my god. What was I doing? That's what I'm wondering, is if it's loading the assemblies, there might be something going on that's causing some weirdness. I don't know. So what was I doing? This is always one of those weird things when you're looking back at old code, like just get it to work, and then you did this, which is apparently just chaining a bunch of random transformations together as separate async operations for reasons. A Valorant player. I don't think I've ever played that game, but I understand that feeling. After this, it's probably going to Sea of Thieves and practicing some like PvP or something. So, but what is? So I understand what was going in through my head when I designed this. The idea was to create something that will time functions so you actually know how long they ran, because I wanted to know that, I guess. Yes, I still play Sea of Thieves pretty regularly, actually. It's one of my more commonly played games. I'm very bad at the PvP though. But yeah, I hit Pirate Legend last year about this time, and so I've just been kind of tinkering around and playing a bunch of random stuff. It's been fun. If you've never played it, I highly recommend it. As far as like, I don't really enjoy MMOs that much, like Destiny, etc. I find the grind and the progression system really annoying. The really cool thing about Sea of Thieves is after like the first year, when there were a little bit of hiccups, and I didn't quite like the game very much the first year or so, but after that, it got really fun. There's a lot of really engaging things that you can do as part of that. And the stories you can tell in an open world where you already have everything unlocked, so there's no stress about like losing progress or anything else happening. It doesn't really happen. So it's just a very different type of MMO that actually feels like something where you can tinker with and explore, more than like a Destiny where there's raids and you have to super optimize your thing and do all this other whatever. There's a path that you're kind of grinding towards rather than just do what you want. Maybe open a store and sell things for bananas. Why not? You know. Yeah, I used to play Overwatch as well, and then I kind of lost interest in like all shooters, because I used to be really into Global Offensive and Counter-Strike, and then I stopped. And I don't really remember why. I just like stopped playing that and did like Minecraft and Sea of Thieves and other things. Lately it's been lots of like Vampire the Masquerade. If you've never played that, it's an old game from like 2002 or something. But it's one of my favorite RPGs. It's definitely a more mature RPG. So depending on your age, maybe hold off for a bit. But if you do like those kind of things, it's like a really dark thing where you play as a vampire. Super cool. And the community still maintains patches to this day, so it's very fun. What else? I don't know why this doesn't work. I shouldn't need a cancellation token. That was just required because I tried to do async stuff here and wanted to be able to cancel the task. We don't need that because we aren't doing that right now. Ah, I'm leaving myself all sorts of really fun notes. This doesn't work. Make it work. Cool. Thanks, me. uh I don't know. This is weird. Because this seems like it should work. And I feel like I've missed something. I'm pretty sure this is used. But anyway. I never used any of that. Grid view, graph. Renderers, icons, console, state. Okay. I don't think that's gonna help us. This is a new thing. All right. I'm getting distracted. Continue with this, do that. Log the result as a return value. Result. Return value, just log that. Okay, perfect. Couldn't connect Visual Studio Code and Unity. Have you installed the plugin? So if you go into Visual Studio Code, I have a lot of extensions, so this is going to be a mess. But there is a visual or a Unity plugin rather. Unity extension. I think somewhere in here. Or am I looking in the wrong place? And it's actually part of Unity's installer. Either way, there's an extension that you can use that tells Unity to use Visual Studio Code, so it should attach. It's definitely part of the installer for Unity to install Visual Studio Code. I remember that being a thing, but if you're still trying to figure that out, you go into preferences under the external things, and you can change which one you're using here, and then work with that. So maybe that helps. I guess mine doesn't have Visual Studio Code either, but you could go and browse to that, I think, and it would work. I don't remember why I moved away, but I moved to Rider for Unity stuff just because I wanted to try it out, and I just stuck. So I change these things pretty regularly, so who knows, but that's what I've been using. Let's change this a little bit. So C# script method is not implemented. Hey, look. That looks relevant. Oh no. Yeah, so I'm wondering, this might be exactly what I'm remembering as well, in that I might have the wrong version of all of these dependencies. And I don't know how to fix that quickly. The easy way is to go into here, into this, and find our code. So let's go up, I think. Is that far enough? Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Oh well. um, so it's calling some load from stream thing. What we don't know is exactly that. How do we know what doesn't exist? There's a solution to this. And it's to undo all the work we did at the beginning of this stream, which is to import the packages wherever I put them in this project into our new one. That should work. Plugins, editor. Wait, what? Hold on. They're not in the resources, that's icons. Editor generated resources. There we go. All of this. I can just drop all of this in. What are the parameters sent to something? What are the parameters sent to Unity? I'm not sure I understand. So I can, let's attach another debugger here, and I can step into this. I don't think Unity shows you the parameters in your exceptions, because you just get types. So load from stream, assembly, and assembly symbols. So it doesn't like something about the assembly that we're providing, is my assumption. That's my current assumption here, is that there's something going on weird with these assemblies that it just doesn't like, because the rest of this is higher up. Looking through like running the thing and managing globals and stuff, which we're not using and shouldn't be a problem. So like cancellation tokens, for example, I don't think we need to worry about that. The build thing, stream type. Are you suggesting, let me see if I understand, that these imports, these assemblies, should be a stream and not a list? Or here, let's go way back on this. I'm going to put this version of the code over here. So we have that. Let's go and make mistakes. We've already kind of made the decision that we're going to fix this. So we're going to go into run async, and we're just going to walk through the stack trace. So run async goes into run async, which goes into create, which isn't a thing in the stack trace. Oh, there it is. Run async. And then that goes into that. And then that goes into get executor. And then that goes into create executor. And then that goes into our build. um, have a good night. Thanks so much for stopping in and chatting. I need to look at some of those tools you recommended. So, and definitely also the stuff in Discord, because I haven't looked at that. Let's see, interactive assembly. Where's that? Oh, and then load assembly from stream. So this is where we get the streams from. Where are those created? Create a new memory stream, create a new memory stream. All right. I don't know enough about this to understand it, but okay. We're very deep into compiler stuff. This is probably a mistake. So we have both of those inside of here. Those both get used as assembly things. So we have our compilation, which gets references, assembly letters. Oh, I do not know enough to know what I'm looking at. Let's keep going deeper and see if this makes more sense. So inside of here we go into load from stream and then load from stream. And then we get an abstract class. That might be part of it. So I don't know if there's a debugger, like a good way to debug this. I think now this is part of I'm still learning how to use Rider, so I don't quite know how to do this, but there should be a way to break on exceptions, which I don't know where that is. Edit configurations. Well, that's not right. That's not what we need. All right, so these are the run configurations. That's not what we want. Let's go into here, go into our settings, and maybe it's in here. Debug. Let's search for break on exception. Okay, we already have that. So we should already be breaking on those, and we're just not. So I don't know what's going on. Process exceptions outside my code. Excluding mono. I think that might be part of what we run into. So I can attach this and then rerun in Unity and see what happens. But we'll see. That might be an option. We could try that. Oh, but now it's doing something. I guess we'll see what's happening. But we should be able to run this. Oh, no, because I hit a breakpoint. The one that I created. And so we end up in here. I can just step into this, I suppose. But this is probably going to be a, wait. Oh, got it. Okay, that's what's happening. It's validating that this is actually a thing. And then doing a whole bunch of other stuff. I don't really want to step through all of this. This sounds like a lot. And none of this is in our stack trace. So get out of that. This seems promising. We're at a throw. What do we do? No, because this is a Unity thing, right? This is in Unity code. So that doesn't seem right. But I don't think this is the right stack trace. I think this is some other thing. Or what? Oh, and then we do a what? What? um, okay, so this is just error handling inside of the UI. Where we're somewhere we don't want to be. So let's not do any of this anymore. Let's see if we can switch this over to Visual Studio Code. I am now stubborn and we're gonna fix this because that's how this is going to work. So let's switch this to Visual Studio and connect that way and see if we can learn more from this. Oh, my brain hurts a lot. But it happens. This is probably the hardest part of this whole thing, is just getting this whole initial bit to work. If you're using this in any other project, it's not a big deal. For whatever reason, using it in Unity is annoying. So we're running into weird things. No thanks. Hello. What is up? Not much. We are really deep into debugging things that I don't understand. Yeah, that's the issue with this is so if you want to get all of the dependencies, the solution is to publish your package. So import the thing that you need to run whatever it is, and then publish that, and the published version in your bin library is going to have all of the correct things. It's going to have all of the assemblies that you need, and you can just use those. That's, I think, the best way to do this is just do it that way. Didn't have that deal. Well, then I don't know. Yeah, if they don't have it, that one's probably in your like NuGet repository somewhere, so you should be able to get it. But a publish should include everything. If it's not, I'm not entirely sure what's going on. Also, why can't I? Oh, this is why. Let's just do one debugger and see how that goes. I'm very confused. All right. I'm pretty sure the issue with this is just that I'm using too new of a version for whatever library this is. And so we're running into issues. We can solve this the annoying way. Let's just grab all of this. I don't necessarily recommend this, but just because this is not what I wanted to spend the next hour on, we're going to throw this into an archive and call it resources. And then we're going to delete everything. There. All right, perfect. Now there's definitely no issues. But then what we can do is grab all of these things and throw them in here instead. I do that too. So you might have noticed there's been a lot less videos than there used to be on this channel. And that's a big reason, is because I had other things that I wanted to do. So definitely recommend taking care of yourself and having like a good balance of things. There can also be some, just if it's how you want to spend your time, that's a different thing though, I think, than feeling like you have to do something, like you have to work on code or something, like it's a job. If you're doing it because you enjoy it and you want to spend your time that way, it's not the same thing as if like I need to do this because it's my job. That's been my philosophy around these kind of things. It's interesting. But I definitely agree that you definitely want some sort of boundaries there. But these are the times when I have lots of time to stream, so that's when we're doing it. But normally, yeah, weekends are me time. All right. Did that work? Yes, it did. Yep. Perfect. All right, problem solved. Just to prove it. There we go. We get hello. It works. And then our return value is null because we get nothing back. Now I need to go and figure out why that worked. There we go. All right, problem solved. So I'm pretty sure this is a version mismatch. I use the latest version of these compilers, and I think that it, for whatever reason, it might just be having issues with that. But this works, so this is what we're gonna do. Yeah, basically, we're using the Roslyn compiler, which is actually what compiles your C# code normally, as a plugin for Unity so that you can write code in a editor window like this and have it do things. What is the thing? It's like create shape, like game object.create, or just, I think, instantiate, right? Instantiate new game object. So if we do game object.instantiate new game object like this and run this, there we go. Now there's two new game objects in our scene because I put a new game object and instantiate in there, and now we get both of those. And you can do whatever you want. So that will do that. If I want this to be like a light or something, so I want to let's go and find our camera. Like, so camera.main add component light. I'm just making this up because I don't have any autocomplete or anything. I want to add a light. Nope, that doesn't work. Camera does not contain the component add component, so we want the game object rather. Add component, there we go. Cool. And now our camera has a light attached to it. So there's how that all works. So yeah, this is intended not as, this is not something that you should ever expose in your game. I do want to be kind of clear about that, because this is not a safe way to do this. You can run anything you want. So if I wanted to do like file dot write all text test. I don't know what this is going to do, but it's probably going to create a file somewhere. I need to include the right thing. So system.io.file.write all text. Cool. There's now a file somewhere on my computer called test. And I don't know where I put it. There it is. So this is not something that you you want to do. You don't want people to be able to do that and just like give this to somebody and let them do that, because people run games in a different security context than they might run like code, like a random thing. And so this would be something where, like, if you connected this online, or somebody was just talking in a forum and said, hey, type this into this text box and it will do something cool, and it's like some garbled text and it actually runs some like rootkit on your computer, you really don't want that. So this is something that is useful for debugging, but not useful as like in the same way that you might see like Lua, where you would add a user accessible coding environment that they could do work with. The only time this would be useful is if you're trying to do something like simulates coding. So if you want somebody to teach somebody C# inside of Unity, this is something that you could use for that. And I think that would actually be a really cool application of this, that we maybe we'll tinker with that eventually, but this is not something that you should like expose as a front end feature of your game, unless you're really careful about that. You'd have to do that really intentionally, just because there is no sandbox. That this is running on my computer. I just created a random file in my thing, and if I wanted to, I could create that anywhere on the computer and it would run with the same execution privileges that this game has. So if it's running in like an administrative thing, suddenly I can go and do things. And typically that's not like, there's already an implied amount of trust with games, but being able to just add any random code means that any person that gets access to that computer could then use your video game as an attack vector against that computer, and you don't want that. Especially if like the game runs in a higher privilege level than maybe something else. Somebody may use your game as a way to execute code that you don't want them to run. Anyway, all that is to say, just think about what like ways this could not be used well. Think of all the bad things you would do with this, and somebody on the internet will think about doing that with your game if you include this. That's the long and short of this. So because this is being shipped as like a Unity tool for developers, I'm less concerned about this. I have seen a few people when I've demoed this in the past who are like, I want to include this in my game. I would just be really thoughtful about how you want to do this. So yeah, that's the idea, is as an editor only tool, or maybe as like a developer console inside your game if you need a way to quickly debug things, like you build your entire project and run it, and then you want to like tweak things in the final build, or like spawn a new object as like a dev environment. That might make sense. There is a little bit of limits here about like what you can access, because we did have to opt in. So inside of here, we have the default imports and assemblies, which are saying, here's the things that you have access to. We're telling it that. But you do want to like think about how that could be used wrong. Like how people could do bad things with this. But yeah, that's the entire spiel on that. It doesn't have to be like a whole big thing. It's just something you should be conscious about, because this is cool. And I've seen a lot of people who want to use this. Go for it, but just think about that a little bit before you hand this out too much. You can't access what I've done inside of a build, because what I've done is only editor scripts. It's all done inside of this editor. It's not all done inside the editor thing. Never mind. But typically you put all of this inside the editor, and then it would only be inside of your editor builds inside of Unity. That's how you would isolate that. Otherwise, if it's just default sitting around here, it's part of it. So that's how that works. So whole long thing about, yeah. So you could extend this into your game if you wanted to. Like if you wanted something that was like learn how to program, where you program like battle bots or something using your custom code, like you have like automated self-driving cars or whatever, and you want people to be able to write C# code to do that, you could, but you just want to be clear that people can write C# code in this thing, and not just include it as like a fun mini game in your sci-fi hacking adventure of like, oh, by the way, this computer terminal also can literally run C# code on your computer. Might be that's a different case. So yeah, that's just like a safety thing mostly. I'm definitely not a security person. It's not something that I'm super familiar with. Just something that you should be aware of. So the next thing that I want to do is we have these hard-coded includes here of like different imports and assemblies that you want to use. I would like to pull those out into a configuration so you can actually configure them by what makes sense for your project. So maybe you have extra things that you're including, maybe extra libraries or whatever. You won't have access to them unless you import them. So you want to be able to include that. That's probably the next thing we're going to do. But yeah, thanks so much for helping with the debugging. I did kind of like get around it, I guess. I'm probably going to be spending way too much time trying to figure out how to actually get this working on the later versions, but we'll see. Yeah, so I think that's what people are talking about with like Lua, for example, where you can write your own sandboxed version where it only exposes intentional things, where things are only available that you want available rather than everything. It can be a big thing. So yeah, that's all of this. Let's throw this into a config. I think, let's see. We've been streaming for 3-ish hours. Yeah, 3.5 hours. Let's end here for the day, I think. Next, we want to pull both of these configs out and throw them into a JSON or YAML, or I think a Unity configuration file. Unity custom configuration. Hold on. This is a thing that I've never used, but I think we could try it. Oh, that's not right. Somewhere in here, there's a way to do custom configs that are native to Unity that might fit in a little bit better than what we were thinking of. Scripted importers. Maybe. Scripts that are associated with specific file extensions. I don't think that's what we want. There's a scripted thing. Maybe we'll be able to find it, but yeah, so this documentation is old. This is the old like legacy 2018 version. Let's go here. Maybe I'm just thinking of scripted objects. Yeah, you might be right. But somewhere in here, there's a thing. So scripted objects maybe. Oh, I'm lost. Script object? Nope. Either way, I'm tired. But either way, I want some way for you to actually be able to configure that so you can set it up that makes in a way that makes sense for your project. Not everybody's going to want the same imports, so we're going to probably change that on your new game input system. But I can't do this. Something covering the new Unity input system. So you're talking about, let me take a quick look. Where is it? Package manager. Is that in here? So if we use plain text, it would probably be like YAML, I think, as a way of doing that. Unity already uses YAML a little bit behind the scenes. So if we open this up somewhere in here, yeah, here's YAML. So all it is just a label with a colon and then the value of it, and it can be nested, so you can create complex objects by nesting them. Unity already uses this as a way to save like your game object configurations and things. So all of your file metadata already gets stored in this format. We'd probably just use this if we need that. And that would give us a way to modify and tweak things. And then you could just open one of these files and just say, I want to import this instead. And you don't have to write code or anything. And it's automatically synchronized with your Git or whatever other version control you're using, and more easy to access. And then we can expose other things as settings too. So if you want to change how the tool works, that could be an option as well. So I think that's where we're going next, is just doing that, probably starting just with the assemblies and the imports, and then moving on from there. And then the next thing, the thing that I want to find a more elegant solution to, is in here. So if I go and pull up like a light, so light test. This is just an example, but if I do like test.transform.position, this position is a struct. So vector 3s in Unity are structs, which causes a whole bunch of issues when we start working with this tool. This is because of how C# handles types. Structs are value types, which means that when you reference a struct like this, it's stored as the value of whatever that is stored in that. What that means is that if I return this from a function, if somebody says, get me the current position of an object, and then that position changes, the struct that was returned will not get updated. It will stay at what it was. And maybe that makes sense for some use cases, but for this, where you're saying like, find the positions of every object that has a rigid body in the scene and let me track all of them. Or find all of the bullets in the scene and let me track all of those. You want the position, you want the value of it. And if you're returning just a struct value or a value type, you can't track that without rerunning all the code, and that's actually really slow. So what I did in the previous version is had like a way of getting around this by storing a reference and using reflection to get the thing. C# does have referencing. So this is because we're using structs, not classes. So the difference here is classes are references. They're going to store a pointer to a bunch of values. A struct is strictly the values. So it's just going to have X, Y, and Z. So the difference there is that if you have a struct, or if you return a class value, that class is going to point to the most recent and say, point me to the object's position, and keep a reference to that for you to hold on to. Whereas with a struct, you just get the results back. That's the difference. So that's sort of what we need to figure out a solution for. It's just a sort of a way of how this works, because you kind of need both of them in different cases. If you're coming from Java or like JavaScript, I think everything is a class. That's not how C# works. So because of that, we just need to think about this a little bit differently. That's just something that you kind of have to keep in mind when you're working with Unity, but also just like generally C# stuff, is that there can be value and reference types, and that's maybe not even like a C# thing, that's just a general thing. Same thing with like C++, right, where you have pointers to specific things or values of specific things. The class is just the pointer to the value, whereas the struct is the actual value itself. Can you create permanent global scope? Yes. So what that means is that you can actually store, you can actually write state into something like this. So if we open up this window again, let's get rid of that. I could do something like var test equals foo, and just save something into the global scope. And then it would be saved and you'd be able to do that. So that's, there's a bunch of problems that we have to solve. The thing that I want is, I want you to be able to write like camera.main.transform.position. I want you to be able to write that and get the position of the camera and have it stay synchronized with the position of the camera. So as the camera moves in the scene, you will still have the correct camera position. I don't know how to solve that without requiring you to change the syntax of what you write. So that's my thinking job. If you use var at your job, I'm pretty sure they'd show you the door. Oh, why is that? I really like it. So yeah, this is one of the original goals of this tool was to like open source it and make it something that anybody could grab as just like a free tool for people to use. The original tool was very broken in weird ways that made it hard to actually use if you didn't understand the tool. So it's just, hopefully this version is a little bit nicer and has less of those janky issues. So yeah. So I find on the var topic, I find that var is actually a good incentive to write descriptive variables and with an IDE. Like if I go into Visual Studio Code and we look at my code, so I'm like using options here. I can go anywhere in my code and look at options and see that it's of type script options. I don't need a name at the beginning of that to tell that. And the advantage of using var is if I ever refactor the name of script options, I won't because it's not my code. But if I ever refactor the right-hand side of this, I don't need to worry about the left-hand side, which is less of an impact here, but becomes a bigger issue further down the chain. Where I have seen people run into issues with var is async stuff. If you're not careful with async stuff, you can capture a task and not the returned result of that. So like in this case, we're running an async thing. If I do something like this, where it's like, await C# script dot run async foo. And this is just example code, but if I store this in a variable like test, we'll get rid of the light because conflicts. But if I do this, it's fine. But if I remove this await, it still works, and that's not fine. And so that's one of the gotchas with a var keyword, is that can happen. And you also lose out on the other useful things, which is, maybe this is easier to show in here. Let's go into this project and change this to net 7, I think. Does that work? .NET build. My targets might be wrong here. But one of the advantages of not using something like whatever is if I want to create a new file, or rather, let's say we want to create a new list, a list of strings. So this will be our string list. If I want to do that, I can use the implicit new in like C# 6 and above, I think, which this doesn't work if you have var. Like this code, it doesn't make any sense if you're using var, but if you have the type declared on the left-hand side, you can just imply it using new. So it's like a reverse of the var. And this is doing the same thing. This is just the exact same as if I had written list string. It's the same code. So it's just slightly shorter, so you don't have to write as much. And then you can do fun things like you can still do your implied thing like test and world, whatever. And then you have your string kind of built in. So that's how all of that works. But yeah, my feeling is that the arguments against things like var, for example, are a lot of the time I feel like coming from things like Vim, where you don't have the same visibility into that, and maybe also from the time when string list would have been written as like SL. And then I have no idea what that is or what it's for or why it's there or anything else. It's just a thing that exists. And so suddenly you'll see in your code like sl.count. What is this and why do I care? So you might want to like jump through and figure that out. And you didn't used to be able to just hover over it and see, oh, it's a string list. So that's the difference. Yeah, there's a bunch of random tips. I have a list of like random C# tips that I want to go through and just make really short videos on, just to kind of cover some of the stuff. Especially if you're coming from a Unity background and you're trying to get into like .NET, you want to be like a ASP.NET developer or something. The code is going to be different and you might not even be familiar with it because Unity code is very different than like modern .NET code with like .NET 7. So it's just going to be different, and so you'll run into different things. So yeah, that's that. But yeah, I think I've taken this on long enough, 3.5 hours. So I think we can end this. Thank you all for stopping by and chatting. I always appreciate that. If you did join late and you want to figure out what we were actually building, this whole thing is going to be a VOD, so you can go back and go through it all. Other than that, if there are things you do want to learn, ping me in some way. I'm going to regret saying that, but reach out to me and let me know, and we can do things. I'm trying to focus a lot more of my time on building things that people ask for, rather than just random things. Just because I found that that's more helpful. And people who are asking here typically already want video content, so we can kind of do that trade. But yeah, other than that, thanks everybody, and this has been awesome. So I will see you maybe tomorrow and we can pick this up. So till then, see you, internet.